Good evening. I'm Latasha D. Mays, President and CEO of New Voices for Reproductive Justice. It is an honor to serve in the leadership of New Voices for the past 17 years in service to the health and well-being of Black women, femmes, girls, and folks across Pennsylvania and Ohio. In the reproductive justice movement, we are rooted in race and gender justice and the ultimate defeat of white supremacy and patriarchal violence. Defending Black lives is where we believe in the reproductive justice movement is one of the greatest calls of our generation, as well as the work that we do every day. In our movement, we believe that parents deserve to send their children out into the world without fear that they will be hurt or killed. Freedom from violence is reproductive justice. And so we are here tonight because this isn't an emergency. It is an emergency for Black women. It is an emergency for Black girls. It is an emergency for Black trans women, an emergency for Black femmes and women identifying folks. So when we say her name, when we say Breonna's name, when we say Ma'Khia's name, this is our vow to action, and that is why we are here tonight. It is also my distinct honor to moderate this evening's conversation. We would prefer that we did not have to have it, but it is a much needed conversation to have. And for those of us living Black lives and living in Black bodies, it is truly critically a matter of life and death. But before we begin our emergency town hall meeting, I want to take a moment to recognize our incredible partners who are leading important work, not only in Pittsburgh, but across Pennsylvania and this nation. On May 18th, voters will decide whether or not Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is located, bans NoKnock warrants when they head to the polls on May 18th. That's actually the city of Pittsburgh will determine if we will ban NoKnock warrants when we go to the polls on Election Day. The measure made it to the ballot due to the tireless efforts of the Alliance for Police Accountability and their fearless leader, Brandy Fisher, and tens of thousands of signatures collected by partner organizations. And I'm so proud that New Voices for Reproductive Justice has been a part of this work, and we are so deeply humbled by the outcome and the belief that we can change anything we so desire. So I want to thank my team at New Voices, our Voice Your Vote team, who contributed to this effort. I want to thank SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh Interfaith Impact Network, and Pennsylvania United. But tonight, it's the Alliance for Police Accountability. It is Gwen's Girls and the Black Girls Equity Alliance, along with New Voices, that came together tonight for this emergency town hall so we can demonstrate our power of Black women and Black girls and Black femmes and Black folks to provide an opportunity to join us in this fight. This fight belongs to all of us as we advance criminal justice reform and improve public health and safety. Our panelists tonight deeply inspire me and all of us who are watching this evening, and certainly that they inspire our organizations. First, I would like to welcome Tamika Palmer, our light in the darkness, our warrior for justice, the mother of Breonna Taylor. She's going to be joining us in this important conversation this evening. I'd also like to introduce Anjanette Young, a social worker who went through a botched police raid at her residence in Chicago. And she actually has some updates about her case and where things stand for her. And last but not least, we have the Brandy Fisher, founder of Alliance for Police Accountability, the organization who fought so hard to get a ban on no-knock warrants on the ballot. Before we begin, I want all of our panelists who are joining us today that we hold you in love, we hold you in defense of Black lives, and we hold you in the Black joy that we always are seeking to keep during times of trauma and terror that we face by the police. We thank you for sharing your stories, for reliving trauma, the trauma of racism, and for leading us and guiding us in the direction towards justice. And we thank you for your devotion. So to begin, we want to address the trauma of no-knock warrants and what it causes in our communities in Pittsburgh and beyond, and in places like Chicago. At this time, I would like to invite Anjanette Young to walk us through a brief presentation. Please show your love and send your positive energy for Anjanette.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so honored to be here on this evening. I first want to thank Gwen's Girls, for reaching out to me and asking me to be a part of this panel on this evening. So much work to be done, such an important cause, and I am truly honored to be able to speak tonight, to share my story, to share my call to action, and to be more involved in the cause of fighting injustices in the city of Chicago and around the world. So I want to start tonight with sharing a little bit of my personal experience. February 21st, 2019. It was a Thursday evening that I'll never forget. Thursday evening that will always be a night that changed my life forever. I had just gotten home from work and was undressing, preparing for a quiet night. Before February 21st, 2019, Thursday nights was my self-care night. I'm a social worker by profession, licensed clinical social work. Currently work in the population of medical social work, so I work in a hospital. And in social work, we do so much hard work as it relates to helping other people and helping families deal with trauma and pain and life circumstances that is important to take care of yourself. And so for many years, I had taken Thursday night as my self-care night. Thursday nights was the night that I like to just kind of get into bed, turn the phone off. Friends and family know, don't call, don't text, I'm taking care of myself. This particular Thursday night, the day started out as always, and I come home, was undressing, getting ready to have my quiet night, and immediately that my life changed forever in moments. There were knocks at my door, a loud boom. It startled me, and before I could get dressed to go and determine what was going on, I was invaded with a swarm of police officers. The Chicago Drug and Task Force, I suppose it's called, raid team invaded my home. It was loud knocks at the door, slam, slam, slam. And the next thing I knew, there were large guns pointed at me, guns with lights and scopes. And I was so disoriented, so traumatized by the entry that I had no idea what was going on. And all I can recall is officers telling me, Chicago Police Department, put your hands up. And I immediately did what they said to me. And so now I'm standing in my living room with my hands in the air, and I'm completely naked. No underwear, no anything. From that moment on, everything was just chaos. They were yelling at me, pointing their guns at me, rushing through my home, searching through things, and I was immediately put into handcuffs. And so from the moment that I was put into handcuffs, I'm just standing there handcuffed with my hands behind my back, and there are 12 white Chicago police officers going through my home. I'm yelling, I'm crying, I'm asking them what's going on, I'm asking them who they're looking for, I'm yelling to them, you must have the wrong place. And even in the midst of them not telling me what they were doing, I just told them they had the wrong place. And I could confidently say that because I didn't live a lifestyle where the police department should be at my door or inside of my home. I've never been involved in any criminal activity that would suggest that they should be at my home. And so my crying and my pleading, asking them, can I please get dressed? Because I'm humiliated, I'm scared. I don't know what to do at this point. And so I'm crying and pleading, can I please put some clothes on? Can I please call someone? I live here alone. I don't know what you're here for. And this went on for about 35 or 40 minutes. And the reason I can remember the time frame so vividly is because as I'm getting undressed, getting ready for my evening, I know 7 o'clock because I watch Grey's Anatomy every Thursday at 7. Grey's Anatomy, it just came on before they entered my home. At the point that they allowed me to take my phone and make a phone call, it was 7:40. So that's why I know that this event went on for at least 40 minutes. Since that time, well, after the incident, there was a point that they realized that they got it wrong. Still never really given me any information, of never speaking to me directly. For me, it felt like I was invisible to them. They never answered my questions. They never really spoke directly to me. And when they did speak directly to me, the officer said, ma'am, you need to calm down. And I immediately was more enraged. You're in my home, you're doing this to me. I'm standing here completely naked. You will not tell me what's going on, but you're gonna tell me to calm down. So that says a lot to how they thought of me that night, a lot to how, whether or not I was important enough to even engage in a conversation. What we've later found out about that incident is that they didn't even do their homework. So that night, they didn't know my name. They didn't know who reside in my unit. They just knew the name of the person they were looking for. And the reason I know that they didn't know my name, because at the end, when it was all over and they needed to write up a report, he asked me my name. That was the only point in that evening, in that situation, where I feel like they acknowledged me or noticed me. He asked me my name, date of birth, asked to see my driver's license. Since that time, I hired an attorney immediately. I am so thankful that I'm a woman of faith and I'm connected to an amazing faith community. My church, which is Progressive Baptist Church here in Chicago. My church, before this incident, already had a social justice and counseling ministry. So I was able to reach out to them immediately and get assigned an attorney that could help me with this case. I don't take that incident lightly because there are so many people who have the same experience and they have no clue of where to go, who to talk to, where to get support, where to hire an attorney that's going to be on their behalf and not an attorney that's just out to make a quick buck. I was fortunate that I had that experience. I was fortunate that I was able to immediately connect to good supports. And so I don't take it lightly that people in these situations don't always have that immediate support. And that's part of my like long-term goals, is to make sure that I am doing all that I can to move forward what my church is already doing in the social justice and counseling ministry, so that more people can have immediate access to good legal services and counseling services. Because I am a social worker, I immediately knew that what I was experiencing was trauma. I immediately knew how to connect to mental health services. And I don't take it for granted that most people don't know that either. And we know in the African American and other Black and Brown communities, the thought of going to a counselor or a therapist is somewhat taboo. It's not always talked about. And then finding that right person or finding a good person to provide those services to you are also lacking. So I know that my experience is like others in many ways, as in what I experienced with the police, but I also know that my experience is not like others in the sense that I had immediate supports and connection. Now let's talk a little bit about where things went after that. So after I hired an attorney and we filed a notice with the city and the legal process started. My incident happened in February. We did not hear anything from the city for months. And then in November of that same year, I was connected with CBS 2 Chicago, investigative journalist, Dave Savini, was doing a story. He was doing a documentary on raids in the city of Chicago, and he had been doing this documentary for a period of about 2 years. So we reached out to him and we talked to him and we got him to do a story for me. That story aired in November of 2019. It got some local attention, but not very much. At that time, we had a new mayor my incident happened in February. We got a new mayor in April. African-American woman who ran for mayor. I was excited about the fact that I thought we would have someone who would actually do the work for the city when she was elected. I voted for her. I told my friends to vote for her. I was excited. When she came into office in April, I had a sense of hope, like she'll do something about what happened with me. Fast forward that to November of 2019, she did not respond. My attorney did everything he was supposed to do. We had now had a story in the news, still no response to what had happened to me on February 21st. So months and months and months go on. As a woman of faith, I like to believe that God covers me in all situations. And I've always prayed that as a single woman who lives by herself, that God protects me when I'm in my home, sleeping at night. God protects me when I'm outside of my home. That night when that situation happened, there was a part of me that questioned, where was God? And I say that to bring you up to now 2020 of March, and we see the story of Breonna Taylor. When I saw the story of Breonna Taylor, I cried for days. But it wasn't until that moment that my faith could help me to understand that God was with me that night. Because my story, very much similar to Breonna Taylor's, and the difference is I'm sitting here today, and I was sitting there that night when they showed her story, and I now know that God covered me. And I don't take away from that, that God didn't cover Breonna or Breonna wasn't one of the faith. What I'm saying to that is it helped me to understand my question of where was God in that moment. He was there. And so that helped to give me strength to be in a place where I am now. After Breonna's story, I vowed that I would speak up, I would fight, I would do everything that I could to bring more awareness to this cause. I did not want her life to be in vain, the loss of her life to be in vain, that I knew that there was more that I needed to do. And so from that moment on, I began to speak out, and I use a hashtag, I am her. And that was because I so related to Breonna's story. I made t-shirts that had Breonna's picture on it, and on the top of it, it said, I am her. I knew that God had given me this experience for a reason. And that's why I'm doing the things that I'm doing today. So I'm going to give you guys a few stats. So 60% of raids that happen around the country are conducted because supposedly the police are looking for guns and drugs. Very few of them result in any guns or drugs. The stats here in Chicago is about 5%. They actually find gun or drugs in the homes that they raid. And there's a large percent of these raids that are done and information is bad. Information is wrong. They got the wrong address. They got the wrong house. The person that they're looking for is incarcerated. Even in my situation, they use a confidential informant, from what I'm told, that just pointed at my door and say the person that they were looking for, they live right there with that red door. And come to find out, the person they were looking for was on a house arrest ankle bracelet. And so they could have just went in their system and found him. So it says more about how the police department are lacking in the way that they investigate these cases, and in the way that they don't do their homework up front to make sure that people don't have the experiences that I had. Had they done a little bit upfront work, they would have known that my place was not the place that they were supposed to be at. And so other things to think about is they got the warrant at 10 a.m. in the morning. That's the time that the warrant was signed by a judge, but yet they decided to wait until dark, 7 p.m. at night. So in February, it gets dark really early. So they decided to wait till 7 to come to my home. So that tells me a couple of things. One, they wanted to wait till it's dark for the element or surprise, or two, maybe they thought they'll wait until, maybe I'm off work. Maybe they knew that, maybe they didn't know that. I'm not really sure. But the fact that they waited that long tells me that there was some calculation that they wanted to do this after it was dark for the element of surprise for whatever reason. Some numbers about Chicago. So Chicago is third in the country in the number of populations of 10 cities. So this data came from a report that they did of 10 US cities. Chicago ranks number 3 in population size. However, Chicago ranks number 1 in the number of bad raids that happen in their city. And from my time of dealing with this experience and doing my own research and being involved in fighting for this, I have learned how deep rooted the corruption is here in the city of Chicago. Goes back decades. And that's unfortunate. It is my hope that with the work that I am now doing here in Chicago, that maybe we can begin to close the gap, and that this won't continue for another 3 or 4 decades after I'm gone. That is my true hope. So some of the things that we're doing as it relates to fighting my case is we're now pushing forward what we're calling the Anjanette Young Ordinance. So this is something that we put together, and there are city council men and women who support this, and they have put it in city council, and now we're doing the work to get the votes and get it on the ballot. So what does the Anjanette Young Ordinance entail? We're hoping that from my incident that we can change the way they do raids here in the city of Chicago. The Anjanette Young Ordinance would hold them accountable for some of the things that they did to me, so that they wouldn't be able to do it with other families. So things are in the ordinance is that they can no longer singly use in confidential informants, right? So the person who told them to come to my home, one, as of right now, we're 2.5 years later, we don't even know who that person is. And two, all that person did is just point at my door, and they use that as a reason to come into my home. Another thing that the Anjanette Young ordinance will do is that they can't, officers can't just, get together and singly go get a search warrant. A warrant would need to be reviewed and signed off on by multiple people of higher statute than the officers, supervisors, and commanders before it goes to a judge to be signed off on. So there will be multiple eyes on the request to ensure that they get it right. Other things that the ordinance will do is we're asking for raid teams to be diversified. So the raid team that came in my home were 12 white men. And so I would like to believe if there was a couple of Black men, maybe a couple of women on that raid team, that my experience would have looked a lot different. I would like to think that a Black man or another female would have insisted that I be allowed to get dressed. I would like to think that that would have happened. So if the raid team is diversified and there are women on this team, there are maybe, people of color on this team, that my experience would be different. And that because they had to call in a female officer from the local precinct to allow me to get dressed. I don't quite understand that in the sense that 12 white men have been there. 12 white men have been standing there looking at me naked, so they couldn't let me get dressed. You've already seen my entire body. Why did you need a female officer to come to dress me? You could have just let me get dressed. But that's another story. But we're hoping to diversify raid teams so that hopefully things like that will be nipped in the bud. We're asking that when warrants are done, that they factor in whether children or people of vulnerability are in the home. Are there elderly in the home? Is there a disabled person in the home? Are there children in the home? We're asking that they do the work on the front end to know this before they go into the home. And then we're also asking that raids be done in the daytime, like a 9 to 5. And that gives them opportunity to really interact with people, knock on the door, and wait for people to come to the door and explain why you're in their home versus just kicking the door in and invading someone's home like you're in a war zone. We're asking that if there are children in home and that couldn't be prevented, that immediately that they will have an officer or a social worker or a DCFS worker that's called in to take care of those children, to minimize the trauma that the children will have because of this incident. If there's a disabled person in the home or an elderly person in the home, that there will be someone there that will take care of that person, and that children and elderly and disabled people are not handcuffed. They're not the ones you're looking for, and there's a way to secure that scene without putting them in handcuffs. So these are the things that we're asking for in the Anjanette Young ordinance. We're asking that children not have guns pointed at them. These are all the things that we found in the city of Chicago, that during these raids that they're doing, they're just destroying people's lives and not treating people with care. I understand that, there's a reason that they need to search a home, but the way you interact with Black and brown families could be done better. And I say that to the city of Chicago, and I say that to all of the police departments around the country. There's a way you treat people. Myself and my attorney, we have said on several occasions that this doesn't happen in white neighborhoods here in Chicago. And the data shows it. When you do the raid data, when you do the research for raid data here in the city of Chicago, no white neighborhoods come up, because they just won't do this to other people that they care about. So I want you to care about me. Don't care about me because someone tells you to care about me. Care about me because you should have enough respect when you wear that badge that says serve and protect, that I am someone that should be respected and that you are serving and protecting me also in the midst of your everyday work. So the Anjanette Young ordinance would actually hold officers accountable. And what we're hoping for is that it will begin to shift the culture here in Chicago in the way that they interact with Black and brown families. So I want to leave you guys with information about how can you be involved? So I think everyone who's listening to this has a role to play in what our future looks like as it relates to race and policing. The first thing that you can do if you're over the age of 18, go register to vote. Your vote counts. Local elections are equally important as presidential elections. Your local election is you elect your city council members, you elect your legislators, your senators, your aldermen, you elect the judge that signs off on that warrant, you elect the judge that you're standing in front of when you get arrested. Your vote counts in those areas. You could write letters to your legislation. If you're in the city of Chicago, you can ask your legislators to support the Anjanette Young ordinance. Call, write, demand change. We all have a voice that we can use. Don't be afraid to use it. Thank you.
Anjanette, thank you so much for sharing your story and really making it real for those who are listening and watching, the impact that NoKnock warrants have on the lives of Black people and Black women in particular. So we are so appreciative of you for sharing your story, and we are so grateful for you. So you're going to hang with us as we bring our other panelists on and we make that transition. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the emergency town hall. We are talking about NoKnock warrants. This is organized by Alliance for Police Accountability, Gwen's Girls, as well as New Voices for Reproductive Justice. So thank you for joining us. If you're watching on Facebook, share it with your network, share it on your page, share it with groups that you're connected to. Make sure you tweet and post and let people know what we are doing here tonight. And now I want to bring all my panelists into the room, onto the screen, as we continue this conversation. I want to bring to our proverbial stage Ms. Tamika Palmer. She is the mother of Breonna Taylor, founder of the Breonna Taylor Foundation. I want to bring into this conversation Brandy Fisher, who is the president and CEO of the Alliance for Police Accountability. And we want to bring Anjanette Young back into this conversation about NoKnock warrants. And so as they come to the screen, welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Again, thank you for lifting up your stories. And so we're going to get into the conversation and, let it be conversational between you and I, but also with the other panelists and guests as well. And so I definitely want to start with you, Ms. Palmer. I just want to ask you what's on your heart today as you come into this conversation about NoKnock warrants. We want to say that the life of your daughter lives on in the work that so many people that we live, sleep, and breathe this work to bring justice for Breonna. And just thank you so much. It just gives me chills to be in this conversation with you. So thank you. And we just want to open the floor for you to share what NoKnock warrants mean for you and whatever you'd like to share with us, with those who are listening today.
Thank you for having me. Definitely that it's an important conversation that needs to be had because, as we all know, so many tragedies that can be avoided from banning these NoKnock. there's no amount of drugs or money that's worth losing a human life. And so for me, that's why this conversation is important and why I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. And um, Brandy, we know that you and Alliance for Police Accountability work so hard to get no-knock warrants, no-knock warrants banned on the ballot in the city of Pittsburgh, along with ending solitary confinement in Allegheny County. For those listening, Allegheny County is where Pittsburgh is located. So I want to talk to you about um, the process. What inspired you to? What inspired Alliance for Accountability to even take on this work of getting no-knock warrant banned in the city of Pittsburgh?
Thank you, Tasha, and thank you, Anjanette, for taking the time to share. I know reliving experiences are not easy. We don't take it lightly, and we don't want it to be exploitative. It's really for people to share their experiences, so people understand how real these situations are. So we sincerely appreciate it. Um, and and I also want to thank very briefly um, Jasari X of One Hood, um, for making a connection with Tamika from Until Freedom for us to be able to bring on Miss Palmer because it wouldn't have happened without them. And so I just wanted to uplift that and thank both of them publicly. I had the privilege through an invitation by Miss Michelle Kinney, who's the mother of Antoine Rose II, who was brutally murdered and shot in his back by East Pittsburgh police officers, to go to Kentucky when Until Freedom did this national call for people to show up. And when we went, it was BreonnaCon. That's what it was called. And the call, how we are. There was a call to action. We don't go for show. We go to show up to see what's needed. And when we went, we learned that there was a call to action, and that we had a state representative here in Pennsylvania that was sponsoring a Breonna law on a state level. And of course, our state assembly, we know how it is, Republican dominated. It was nearly impossible to get it to move. And so we decided to do it locally because, we're going to always fight. This is a, a fight for Black lives. This is a fight for Black women. There's no lines drawn, no matter where you are. There's no geographical location that separates us, and that's what they want us to think. But that's not the case. And so, and our ancestors have taught us that, and history has taught us that. And so we came back with a mandate. We went. There was a call to action. We picked up that call to action, and we decided to get that done here locally. And also because I know personally from growing up that this happens here. And I know from being an advocate in this work for the last 10 years that this happens here because we get complaints from people. Of course, our local police department stated that it doesn't happen here because who admits wrong, especially in these systems of power. And our local city council was pushing to pass it after we pushed for it. And just to be clear, last year during the protest after George Floyd, our goal was always to make systemic change. And so we presented to city council to ban no-knock warrants, in the name of Breonna. And we also, and they said no, right? They said no, because we don't do this. And my position and our position was, if you don't do this, then it should be a yes, right? Because it shouldn't be a problem because you don't do it. And that goes to show you that they do. And so we went and decided to get this on the ballot ourselves, right? Because you don't stop. You don't ask for permission. You make change. And so we pushed during pandemic, and was able to get over 66,000 signatures. Individuals, they had to actually sign these, right? There's no typing your name. They had to actually put their signatures on the line. So over 66,000 people we touched. And they agreed that this needed to be done and it needed to be on the ballot. And so they told their city council what they wanted. And so, May 18th is the date that we now have to vote to get it passed. But that is what it inspired us. This was not something, we don't do this work because we're thinking, what is the next campaign we can do? What can get us noticed? What is the need? What is the call? And how do we meet that? And that's why I cannot be, more grateful to have Ms. Palmer here tonight, because we don't want to do this work without the families. We're not trying to do it so APA can get shine or all the organizations that came together. We're doing it because Breonna is all of our daughters, all of our sisters. Breonna is us. And we're going to make sure that we're doing this fight as if it is us as Black women, as Black people on this planet. And so thank you again, Ms. Palmer, for being here. And I'm sure every day is rough for you in this fight with this system. And so we appreciate you taking the time to grace us with your presence. But that's why. And seeing Ms. Palmer speak so powerfully, so passionately when I was in Kentucky, and hearing what she wanted, this is what she wanted, this is what she said. And so we said, okay, right? How can we be an advocacy organization and a mama saying this is what I want and we don't do it? And so, we moved out and that's what we did. And that's why it was so important for us to have her here tonight while we had this conversation, because that's what it's all about.
Brady, thanks so much. You got my head spinning. I have so many things I want to ask now. And I know we have a script, so I know our team is going to be like, she's going off script. But I wanted to ask the question around this idea around, we are fighting for Black lives. Black Lives Matter. And in some ways, we are still leaving Black women and folks out of the fight, or that it is not commonly understood that Black women are facing police violence and a variety of different types of violence every day already. It may not be police violence all the time, but we are always under the threat of violence as well. And so I just wanted to hear from you first, Ms. Palmer, then you, Anjanette. Would love to hear, is there this idea that Black women are not experiencing police violence police violence or state-sanctioned violence in the same ways that Black men and other Black folks may be experiencing it?
So Black women tend to be everyone's superhero, right? So no one knows when we're hurting or no one's paying attention when things are happening to us, because we tend to be very strong people, and we tend to pick ourselves up even before other people come to pick us up, or we tend to dust each other off and just try to fix it that way. So I think we're overlooked for those reasons. I think that people don't know how to see us hurt, to say.
Yeah, so this idea that Black women and women identified folks, we just get up, we keep it moving, or that this idea that we don't feel pain or don't feel hurt, but there's so many losses that we're experiencing every day. And so, yeah, we are Black girl magic for sure, without a doubt. We make a way out of no way. But then I think that also in this situation, we see how what Breonna has done, Ms. Palmer, has changed the way that we see violence towards Black women and folks. It has changed our movement, how we address work. You can't have a racial justice analysis if you're not talking about how it impacts the Black women and girls in your life. And I think Breonna's life legacy is that. She has changed how our organizations engage in organizing and advocacy. So it's not just Black women in the back doing all the work. We're standing at the center of leadership to change the things that we want to see in the world. And so, Anjanette, I would love to hear your thoughts around how you think people perceive violence that Black women experience specifically, especially police violence. I think you are on mute, Anjanette.
So first, I want to say that we have to acknowledge that how in the Black and brown communities, situations like this have become normalized. It's not a big deal, right? The police kicked my house in. They was looking for drugs. They didn't find no drugs. They went home, right? And so we know that in our Black and brown community, that has become such a norm that when it happened, it does not rise to the level of that this is something traumatic that needs to be addressed. And I say that because when my incident happened in February, and there are people that I told about it, and a lot of the feedback that I got, no one said this directly, but it just made me feel like that people thought, oh, no big deal. And I even have a cousin who we can laugh about it now. He was like, initially, I kind of joked at it because I didn't know it was that serious. So when the body cam footage came out and everybody really saw what happened to me, the same thing that I had told them happened to me, now everybody's in the uproar about what happened to me. So I think that there's a part of our society that normalizes these situations to the point that we don't get the support that we need, and that people are not paying attention, that our Black women, our Black and brown families, our Black women are being terrorized, for lack of a better word, by the police department, by systemic racist issues. I'll use the word hate. And I say hate in the sense that whether it's conscious or unconscious, when you treat someone the way that I was treated, there's a part of me that makes me think, am I a threat to you? Do you hate who I am? Not me as a person, but what I represent. Because how could you not have compassion for anyone standing in my position that night? And so I think that, it has happened so much that we have become numb to it. And so I agree that Breonna life and her situation brought light to this situation. And we have a responsibility to now step into that space and be the protectors of her and her legacy and what she stood, what her life stood for. And the fact to say that we are not going to stand back and allow this to continue to happen to our Black women. We have a responsibility to step into that space and do something about it.
Absolutely. Brandy, you want to get in on that question about, how people perceive police violence and the intersection with Black women and femmes, girls, and folks?
Yeah, I mean, it's just become so pervasive. And, it used to be that it was the majority of Black men who were subjected to this. And they still are every day on a daily basis, even when we don't see it. It's not highly profiled. It's probably happening right now. And there was this idea that women and children were protected from this type of thing, right? Even if you go back to gang violence, it was, this was between the men who are in this game. If somebody's with their woman, if somebody's with their child, you don't do anything, and all that's out the window. And so this sense of protection that we used to feel, that we used to have, even within our own communities, no longer exists, right? We don't just have it from the system; it just doesn't exist for us, period, as it seems anymore. And I think the idea about women being under attack by state sanctioned violence, and when we say women, we mean all women. I would be remiss if I don't uplift my trans women sisters out here, who are out here working hard, but also subjected to a lot of this violence as well. It shows that power, that white supremacy, and that racism is what takes precedent in these situations. And that's why you can have Black officers who do this, because it's about power. It's about systemic racism, and this is embedded in the fabrics of our criminal legal system. And so the fact that Black women specifically, particularly, and almost solely, when you get to looking at gender-based violence, are the ones who are survivors and victims of this, it throws out the window this idea that police officers have to feel threatened, right? That's what they used to say all the time, and they still say it, but that was the common denominator, is that I felt fearful for my life. I felt threatened. And people would take that and run with it when it was this big black man who just looked threatening because he stood there. But what are you saying about children? What are you saying about women who are sleeping, who are drinking, who are walking, who are living and breathing inside their own homes? What are you saying is the reason? And I think these situations show and make it very clear that this is about racism, that this is about power, and this is about the construct of our country, which our states are just microcosms of, right? And so we have to continue to fight, yes, but we have to first be real about what we're facing. We have to be real about what we're fighting so we know how to fight it. And so, everybody should be in an uproar when Black women are under attack. And I also want to speak to the fact that, this idea that we're Black superwomen, because not only is that pushed on us, it's also accepted by us. And as women, we need to stop thinking that we have to be superhuman, that we have to be super women, and that we do deserve to be loved, respected, and protected.
Right. And as Malcolm X said, Black women are the most unprotected and disrespected woman in this country and person in this country. And it is still true to this day. His words still speaking truth to power many, many, many decades later. I want to ask Ms. Palmer, what does it mean to you for organizers, activists, organizations, legislators working to pass Breonna's law in so many places across this nation? And we've had some successes, but how does it impact you, or does it inspire you to continue the fight for Breonna?
It does both, actually. It lets me know that people around the world are paying attention to what happened to her and that it wasn't right, and that they're recognizing that it continues to happen to us all. So to know that people are willing to stand up and battle this thing is to know that they're tired of it, and to know that enough is enough. And I tell people all the time that I'm still raising a Breonna. I got another daughter here so I refuse to walk away from this. I refuse to not fight these days, because she could be very well be the next Breonna. And before I let this system do another daughter of mine, baby, listen. Yeah. Yeah.
And it is for those who remain. It's for those of us who remain to fight. And we know we're fighting for ourselves, but we're fighting to create the world that we want. We're fighting for a world where for Black women and girls and folks and trans folks and non-binary folks to be able to live and to grow into the people they want to become without the threats of white supremacy and patriarchal violence and this fear of being ourselves. There's this term Misogynoir, which is about the hate of Black women. So it's a specific set of systems and attitudes towards Black women specifically that are compounded by institutions that are seeking to harm us. And that is always at work for us, again, as we are making our way out of nowhere way and, really changing the world at the same time. that's the irony of all of this. We set everything, every culture, every trend. We save the democracy, and we still can be killed in our homes. We could still be not sympathized with or empathize with when we face humiliation and degradation in our homes. I do want to share some of the comments that are coming in, just to let you know the impact of sharing your experiences. One comment says, thanks to all of you for organizing this important conversation. Thank you to those of you listening and watching. Also, Such a profound and powerful discussion. Thanks to the sponsors and panelists for sharing their experiences with us. And so I wanted to ask a question about, so people don't know about, know what no-knock warrants are. I open this up to all of you. What is a no-knock warrant, and are they legal? So if anyone wants to take that question on, it'd be great for people who are not familiar.
So yeah, I will. So no-knock warrants basically give the police and whoever are on these raid team the permission to just kick in your door, which means that they don't have to knock, they don't have to wait for you to answer the door. They can just kick it in and do what it is that they're going to do. Now, here's the difference between a no-knock warrant and a knock warrant. There really is no difference to the police department. So in my particular situation, they had what was considered a knock first warrant. And if you watch the body cam footage, they knock, 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 kick the door in. So they're cheating the process. So they're knocking to say that they did knock, but they are kicking in your door at the same time that they're knocking. So there is no difference between the two as it relates to how they're actually implemented.
So they're circumventing. They're like, well, we knocked.
Exactly.
They're not waiting for actual response, so someone can know that the police are about to kick in their door. Wow.
Right. That was one of the big things, even with the case with Breonna. They're saying, oh, we had a no-knock warrant, but then you had a no-knock warrant, but no, we knocked and announced ourselves. So which one was it? And to say that Breonna Kenny did not hear you announce yourselves, and neither did the 7 other neighbors. So it's their way of legalizing breaking in your house.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
It's disgusting, and it's horrible all the way around, and it's like mind games and manipulation. And which is why, you know, in our law, we are stating that the police have to wait. There's a period of time that they have to wait before they can enter the home, period. Right? That's what our law says, because that does happen, and they do play these games, and it happens often. What they're concerned about, and this is the fear that they play on, right? The American legal system plays on fear. It exists because of fear. And they'll say that if we wait 15 seconds, then it's going to give the criminal time to get away or get rid of evidence, but you know, what was highlighted here today, which is, I think, is a profound statement, is that no amount of money and no drugs are worth a person's life.
Absolutely.
Right? It might be worth a mark on your badge, but it's not worth a person's life, which is why we yell and scream that Black Lives Matter. And so, you know, I just want us to be real about what's happening. Is this doesn't only just protect people. Anyone understanding what no-knock warrants are, even police officers, should want this to pass. Because if you enter my home, okay, let me tell you, if you enter my home unannounced and walk through the door, and don't let it be a big bang. I'm not waiting to see who you are, because I know you do not belong, because if you did, you would have a key. And so when we're allowed, and we live in a nation where we're allowed to defend ourselves, if I can't be in my own home and be protected, isn't that why Zimmerman got off? Right? I mean, you know, and this is why I need people to understand white supremacy, because Zimmerman was not even inside a home. He was in a complex, outside, outdoors,
in the yard.
You're right, and use this excuse. Go ahead, Tamika.
And he pursued that, and he pursued Trayvon even after they told him not to do that.
Exactly.
Directly defied orders, right? And use this defense, that the castle doctrine, that I am protecting my residents, and so I have a right to. But didn't anyone in Breonna's home? have a right to protect the residents? Doesn't every human being have a right to protect the residents? Go ahead, Tamika. You can interrupt me at any time.
Because not only did he have a right, he was a legal gun owner in his own home, and you entered it. And then you arrest him and charged him for an attempted murder when you broke into that house and he used a legal firearm that he's been trained to use to protect himself, to protect his home, and then you wanted to charge him with a crime for that.
And to protect his Black woman, right? We're not even allowed to protect ourselves and protect our families. And Black men can't even protect, or whoever can't even protect their spouse, their partners, or their women. And so this is the message that they're trying to send to us. This is the message that they're trying to tell us, but it's the one that we're not buying. It's the one we're not allowing. And it's the one that we're not accepting, because we know who we are, we know our value, and we know our rights. And so that's what the fight is about, is that you don't allow Zimmerman to run free outside, outdoors, and get away with murder because he was protecting his home. But then you arrest Breonna's boyfriend for protecting his home, right? And so this is a very clear picture of racism. It's a very clear picture of bias. It's a very clear picture of how white supremacy works. And so this is why we fight. This is why we fight hard. This is why we don't stop. And this is why we take the leadership. And we are following your lead, Tamika, whether you realize that or not, all the way here in Pittsburgh. And I know we don't know you personally, but we love you personally. Unsold Freedom has uplifted your case in a way nationally, no matter what anybody says, that has caused all of our hearts who care about humanity to bleed. And for those of us who are moved to action, to hit the ground, and it did a winner during a pandemic, all about Breonna. We don't play. All about Black women, all about Tamika Palmer, and also now about Miss Anjanette Young. And so this is about all of us. And what we have a duty to do is what we didn't have the opportunity to take part in, but only could witness or read about in books that we get from our families, because our educational system only tells us that we were slaves. What we have a duty to do is show other Black girls that are watching us, that see that Breonna was murdered on the news, that see this, that they need to stand up and fight. And that not only do they need to stand up and fight, but that they will win, and that they can win. And so that is the essence of this. And that is the legacy of Breonna, is that every young Black girl, every young Black and brown girl understands that we can win and we will win, and that it's not okay for them to do this, right? Anjanette brought up a point, is that they have normalized this. Mm-hmm. And they have made people think that at least this didn't happen to me, right? Now it's like the bare minimum. At least I didn't die. Mm-hmm. At least I didn't go to jail. At least they just came into my house and they left. At least they pulled me over and I survived. Mm-hmm. And that is what they want us to believe. But that is what we will not accept, and we will not allow our youth and our children to believe that you don't and we need to let them know that they not only have constitutional rights, that they have rights as being a human being.
Absolutely.
And Tamika, I would echo the sentiment that we and I very much carry love for you and Breonna here in Chicago. Every time I publicly speak, I put on my t-shirt that says, I am her, and Breonna's picture right there.
You do. I've seen it a couple of times, and I am so honored and grateful to you for that.
So I carry her with me in this cause here in Chicago, and I'm going to continue to fight. And I carry Breonna with me. It means so much to me that what I'm doing is for me. It's for Breonna. It's for every young girl, brown boy, men, women who we refuse to allow this to continue to happen with our families. And so I have so much love for you and Breonna.
Thank you. I love you all back.
And this movement, this political moment, it is about love. We're fighting out of the love of Black people. And liberation is about love. We want all of our people to be free from physical shackles, mental shackles, free from violence. And there is absolutely nothing normal about white supremacy. And it is so insidious at how it flips the script, even within ourselves, to believe that, you know, when we leave our homes, that we just surviving the day is normal. You know, thinking about me, I drove across the state not too long ago, and I was saying to my people, like, Black women do the same thing Black men do when the police come to your car.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you depend on your gender expression or gender identity, you know, you may be facing some of that threat that Black men experience just from being Black. And so there's nothing normal about a system that teaches us to hate ourselves or to condone a system that is designed to hurt, harm, dehumanize, or kill us. And so that's what this moment has been about. And there is such a bravery and just a unapologetic, you know, vibe to this movement. It's like, you want to stop killing Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to real quick, Tasha, highlight, because I think it's very important for people not to forget. Anjanette's still going through a fight. Tamika is still going through a fight. And our support, whether we understand that or not, I mean, they're fighting the system. They have to deal with the intermakings of it, you know, as much as it's getting passed in this city or that city. Their cases are still live and well. And they have to deal with disappointments. They have to deal with this white supremacy showing up in their cases all the time. So even if every state passes Breonna's law, Tamika still has to deal with this case and what they're doing with that. And so the fact that there could be some semblance of justice, the fact that Breonna's legacy can be carried, because these systems are telling them with the laws that are written that this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
The system is telling them that they're crazy for thinking that there's something wrong with what happened, right? And I say this all the time, and I'm going to say it until I'm gone, is that it's not about what is law. It is about what is just,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's about what is right. It's about what is righteous. It's not about what is law. These are man-made laws. It's about what is right, what is just, and what is righteous. And because they say it is, doesn't mean it is. And so the reason why we have to continue to get behind these families and to fight is because we have to remind them that their fight is righteous, that what they're saying is right, and that the system is wrong.
And I just want to speak to that. So here in Chicago today, as you mentioned, I'm still fighting. So my case is still very much, we're still fighting. It blows my mind how the city and the mayor will stand in front of cameras and say to everybody that, you know, we feel bad for Anjanette. We want to make this right. And I have instructed my people to resolve this. And it's been over 2.5 years. But today, let's talk about today, because we got some stuff dumped on us today when I say we, me and my legal team. So on today, my case was being investigated supposedly by an independent investigator with what we call here in Chicago, COPA. So Office of Police Accountability. So COPA drops a report today after 16 months. And then they release a press statement to the public, and then they send a report to the police superintendent. That's the policies. Okay, understand processes. The statement that they released today was a clear, just wash over of the entire incident. So they talk about that there were more than 100 violations. Just my incident, over 100 violations that were done the night that they came into my home. Over 12 officers. So the officers who were in my home and then the officers who were involved in getting the warrant. Between them, over 100 violations that happened that night. But then in the next couple of paragraphs down, they washed over the event as if the officers did nothing wrong. So the press statement was perfunctory. They had to put out a statement. It did not provide any justice to what has happened to me. And now we have to wait for the police superintendent to decide if he wants to take action based on the information that was given. I mean, just blatant fighting of systems. The mayor who is named in the lawsuit and the city has counsel, right? So the city has a set of attorneys that manage these things. The mayor went as far as to go outside and hire additional counsel to fight this case, but then she stands in front of the public and say, I want to resolve this. Why is there a need to hire additional counsel if your intent is to resolve this matter with me?
Tamika, can you
still very much fighting a very corrupt system here in the city of Chicago?
Tamika, can you speak to that a little bit as well? Because I'm sure, just so people can understand how the system works.
It's so disrespectful because, like she said, I've never seen something so black and white in my life. For so many people to say, oh, well, perjury is against the law, such and such is against the law. All these things are against the law, and you have these officers who broke every single one of these laws, but nobody's going to do anything about that. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, which makes no sense. And then you have it's this system that they're all in here trying to protect each other, right? Because even with Daniel Cameron released a statement and said, well, the grand jury decided not to prosecute these officers. We find out that's not true. Daniel Cameron never even presented the case to the grand jury, but you stood on a TV and told the whole entire world that the grand jury decided to not do these things. I don't understand the system that you're going to tell me all these people are breaking the laws. So who's in charge of making sure that the people that break those laws are dealt with? Who makes sure? Because if I get on the stand and lie, I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail. You know what I'm saying? If I do these things, I go in the store and pick up a piece of candy, I'm going to jail. But you're going to tell me these people broke these laws and a lot was lost. But nope, everybody's afraid to do the right thing to charge these officers. It makes no sense. It's like this, like it's a whole system you're fighting, right? It's the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? And it's the, some days it takes everything out of you. It takes literally everything out of you. And some days you want to walk away and be done. But I like, no, you can't kill my child and think that that's okay. You can't do that and then get on TV. I stood outside. I stood on this scene for over 12 hours. When I first arrived you sent me to the hospital and told me she was there. I go there for 2 hours to find out she's not there. She's not even on her way there. And I come back and I'm still there for over 12 hours. And I leave that scene still not knowing that the police shot her that night. But that's okay. That makes sense. I don't like that the police shoot her. So I go home and hear on the TV something about, the police executed a warrant and the suspect was in a shootout with a suspect. Who? Like, this is insane. Like, how do you let me stand out there? How do you let anybody stand out there for 12 hours and not tell them what's going on? You know, not try to explain to me. And then when you do talk to me, the first thing you ask me is if I knew anybody who would want to hurt Breonna or Kenny. So you let me think someone broke in that house. Like, that's insane. That, like, is that not against the freaking law? Like, who's gonna do something about that?
Wow. And Ms. Palmer, so there's the Department of Justice pattern or practice investigation that U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has announced this week. And, you know, what are your thoughts or expectations of, or anything out of that? I think I know the answer, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna say it doesn't bring justice to Breonna, but hopefully that they're going to do a serious enough job to deal with the corruption in that department, because we all watched it over for the last year. We know that there's a number of corruptions going on in this department. So to just tell me you're going to investigate means nothing to me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, like I said, you will do something. It will be some sort of progress. But I said it the other day, my son said it best. I didn't come for progress. I come for justice. And you just saying this means nothing to me at this point.
And what does justice? We say we want justice for Breonna Taylor. What would be justice for you, Ms. Palmer?
Charge and convict these officers who murdered her, because that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about the murder of Ma'Khia Bryant.
My God.
Thinking about what you were saying, Brandy, and just the fierceness of young people to take action. So we had shared, of course, just on our social media, we have a youth project. Like, how do we organize young people to take action against police violence, to take action for our human rights in defense of Black women and Black folks' lives? And we put that call out. And, it was young people who replied to that call. We're talking about 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, texting us saying, we want justice for Ma'Khia Bryant. And they were from all over this country, from Louisiana to Baltimore to Chicago to Iowa, Seattle to San Diego. It's young people who have always led movements for change, lasting social justice movements for change. And so when we think about the Ma'Khia Bryant situation, like you said, Randy, because your training tells you to do that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And for people who want to justify her murder when she called the police for help is absolutely shameful, it's disgusting, it's disturbing on the deepest level. And this is what we are up against in the culture, even among Black people. Oh, well, maybe it's like if we come out alive, that's okay. That's such a low bar for the value of our lives and situations when we encounter the police. So as we begin to close out, just your thoughts on the Ma'Khia Bryant murder by the police in Columbus, Ohio, which is now a stand your ground state. That's where New Voice is, where we do our work in Ohio as well. So tell those who are listening what's on your heart about Ma'Khia Bryant.
She definitely deserves justice. I'm 5'2" and I done broke up fights in a better manner than that. Like that was ridiculous. She wasn't even given a chance. And she's a child. You can't make this right. Ain't nothing you're going to say to me that's going to make that right. You just can't.
So for me, as a social worker, I look at Ma'Khia's situation from a lot of different lenses, right? So I feel like there are some systems that failed her before that day. Why she ended up in foster care and just some of the stories around what that foster home environment was like that led up to that day. And the simple fact that she was the one that called for help, and yet she's the one who loses her life, that says a lot as well. There's so much work that needs to be done on how police officers handle crisis situations that are, well, I won't say non-violent. There was a knife, so that makes it violent. But the situation itself could have been handled so differently. Police officers, and many have said this, and there's so much research and so much talk around it right now, they are not equipped to de-escalate situations. And so finding better ways and better systems that can handle situations that result in everyone walking away. So maybe she gets arrested for assault with a weapon, but she lives to get arrested for assault with a weapon. And so many cities are moving towards having social workers be involved in some of the crisis calls that police officers have to respond to. I think that's a great thing. There's a lot more research that needs to go into that, but that's not a bad idea. I know that police officers go through some training. I know that NAMI, the National Mental Health Institute, I know they do some training with police departments, but police respond in a different way. And each profession has their own training. Police officers are trained to shoot to kill. Social workers are trained to de-escalate, to talk to people, to know how to engage, to know how to make contact, to know how to de-escalate a situation that does not require anyone losing their lives. And so I watched Micaiah, I watched that situation, and my heart just went out to her in so many ways, and everybody that was involved. And there was a lot of chaos going on. And so for that officer to walk in and immediately shoot in the midst of chaos, there's a lot about him as an officer.
Absolutely.
I just want to say that one, you know, I totally agree that police officers don't need to be responding to certain things. But I just want to highlight, you know, these are the reasons why Black people don't call the police, right? Because when we call the police, it's a very different situation for us as an end result than when other people call the police. Because when the police show up and they see us, they automatically respond in an over aggressive way, in an over aggressive manner, even with our children. And we see that in our schools, right? Like, we don't get to be kids. We don't get to make mistakes. We don't get to have fights. And we don't get to live or survive when we do make mistakes. You know, we have people doing mass shootings, right? And even here locally, you know, in Franklin Regional, you had the young man stabbing up a bunch of kids in a school and he lived. You have the young man shooting protesters and he lives. You have the young man shooting up a church and he lives, right? You have Micaiah in a teenage fight and she dies. You have Breonna laying in her home trying to sleep and they raid in her house and her boyfriend defends their home and she dies. And so you have Antoine Rose running away and he's murdered. And so, you know, it's not for us to continue to try to convince people that this is a problem. It's for us to take time and spend all of our energy, all of our intellect, all of our love, and our beauty into creating the world that we need and that we want. We don't need permission. We don't need understanding. We just need to come together and get it done. And so, you know, and that's where, you know, I'm hoping we all arrive to. I see us growing there, you know, like the rose that grew out of the concrete. We are powerful people. We are amazing people. There is a reason why an entire world, there's a reason why an entire country is investing so much money in keeping you down. You have to think about that. There is a reason why they are investing so much money into stopping you from voting and into trying to lock you up in prison and into taking your life, because you are powerful, because you are amazing, because you have a higher level of intelligence that people just do not know existed. That pyramids, I went to Egypt. When you see what we have created and what we have built, we are a threat just by living and breathing, because we're so amazing. And we need to embody that, and we need to hold that, and we need to stop allowing this educational system here and these people to tell us different. You know, common sense will tell you as a person, people are not against anything that is not powerful, right? If you were doing nothing, if you didn't matter, you would not be thought about. And so, you know, I have to remind people of that. And, you know, the youth are leading. We're not waiting for them to lead. They are already leading. We need to listen to them, right? And help support their ideas, even if we don't always understand them. Support the idea. Let it grow, let it blossom, let it flop, let it fail, but support what they're doing and be there for them because they have a whole world against them. And so, you know, and I fought when I was in school. I came up through the 90s. I came up through the gang era here in Pittsburgh. If you didn't, you didn't have a choice to fight sometime, but to fight sometime, right? And so, and I tell people that all the time. As wonderful as people think I am, I was a fighter, and I'm still a fighter, as you can see. That's why we're on this call tonight. But I was a fighter. I would have a record for days right now, if the way this system is today, if it was that way when I was growing up. And so for all the Makayas, for all the young girls, and I just want to make it clear, because people will make it seem like, oh, we're making excuses, right? These things happen in everybody's culture. The microscope is on Black people, right? The megaphone is on our voices, is on everything we do. And you know, and the narrative and the media has been used to be against us. But I also see a new day when it comes to some journalists. Now we have a lot of budding journalists who get it and who are fighting for us as well. And so, you know, we have to continue to tell our stories. And that's why I thank you all for being here tonight. We have to continue to use our own media. And as hard as it is, and because I know it's hard, and I can't imagine how hard it is. But I know it's hard. As hard as it is necessary. And so again, I just want to say we appreciate you. We thank you. We honor you. And we continue to follow your lead. And I need to, again, before we get off this call, uplift Miss Michelle Kinney, you know, who is our own local shero, because of her leadership, not just because of her laws, but because of her leadership after the murder of her son. And also, you know, that leadership put it on my heart to make sure that I'm honoring all mothers and doing what I can do. You know, which is why we're doing this for Breonna as well.
Thank you so much. As we
so on May 18th, I got to.
So Brandy said, if you're living in the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, we have to vote in the Pennsylvania primary on Tuesday, May 18th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to do just one last round of how people can get in touch with you and continue to support you and your work, and then I'll bring it to a close. So I'll start with Ms. Palmer.
Just show up, keep saying her name, keep demanding justice. Breonna Taylor Foundation .org. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I don't really know. Just support me, just uplift me. That's what I need.
You have our undying, eternal, endless support. And thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself and your life through this tragedy that we are working to win and bring justice. And so, Anjanette, how can people support you and be connected with you?
So first, I'll start with anyone who's in the Chicago or Illinois area. Support the Anjanette Young Ordinance. Call your local officials, your legislators, and tell them that you stand with me and support the Anjanette Young Ordinance to ensure that these NoKnock warrants and these raids are not continuing to happen, and that we put systems in place that prevent Black and brown families from having to continue to live through traumatic situations such as mine. If you're not in Chicago area, you can follow me. I'm on all social media, Twitter at Anjanette Young 0, Facebook and Instagram, Anjanette Young, LinkedIn at Anjanette Young. And also, if you just happen to be a social worker, you can visit my website, cafesocialwork.com, and provide and find services that are offered specifically to social workers who are working on advancing their career in social work, looking to take the licensure exam, needing support with mentoring and tutoring. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you so much, Anjanette. It was our honor to have you with us tonight. We want to thank all of our guests, including Brandy Fisher, who we lost her signal, but you can follow Alliance for Police Accountability on all social media, APA, some variation of PGH. That's where you can find her. She's not, and Brandy is not hard to find. I want to thank all of our organizers for tonight, Gwen's Girls, Alliance for Police Accountability, and New Voices for Reproductive Justice. I'm going to read one comment which says so much love and blessings to all of you. And that is how we will end tonight. Thank you for all of you who are watching and listening and participating in this emergency town hall. We will win on May 18th, and we will win the fight for justice, and we will win justice for Breonna Taylor and for you, Anjanette Young, and for all Black women, femmes, girls, folks, cis, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people. We will win against white supremacy and patriarchal violence. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks for supporting.
Good night. Thank you.